what's up everybody? Welcome back to another Roblox item Asylum reaction. Today we have two songs that are requested by Whatever and my executive producers. This is Hale and Mihawk. They said that they are full of references and just memery in general, and apparently Hale is kind of a play on the Juggernaut theme from TF2, and not sure about Mihawk. I'm assuming based off the name, maybe One Piece. That feels weird for being a game reference. It's not, so it's like, okay, maybe not, but that's the only Mihawk thing I can think of. Either way, though, gonna hear these and see what they have in store, and without further ado, let's go! Yeah, I guess I can kind of hear the TF2 in this. I don't really know the Juggernaut theme specifically well. It's been well over a decade since I played TF2 last. But I could hear this backing up Saxton Hale. It's got that sort of an energy to it. All right. Would Juggernaut be like the song of when you're fighting Saxton Hale? Because I've never actually done that, so maybe. Maybe that's why it sounds vaguely familiar. That little sample in there, that one, sounds very like N64 Rareware game. Honestly though, if I wasn't warned or told, I would think this is 100% original. So good on the rearrangement, because this doesn't feel exactly like anything else I've heard, even within Roblox, even from Aiden. There is something about the quality of Aiden's synths that is both so, it's so simple. It's so simple. Like the synths themselves are just the most basic shit, but I think it's the application of like the when and where he's using certain things that makes it feel so much more unique to him. Because I've heard these same samples and synths used by other people, and you could just tell by how they sound, but there's a quality. It's kind of like a good guitarist will be a good guitarist with any guitar. You know, it's not the instrument, it's the player. And I think that that's kind of the vibe going on with Aiden and how his sound is. Okay, so I looked in the description and it said that it was an entirely original song based on the vibes of TF2 because he's never played it. That totally tracks. That 100% tracks. Again, it felt very vaguely like TF2. But that could have just been the sample choices, you know? It's going to sound like a completely different property if you're not using the same sound fonts and everything, or just like heavily referencing it. And that didn't feel like any specific theme I'd heard in TF2. Like I hadn't played 100% of the game, so there was still a possibility I hadn't heard whatever song it was being based off of, especially if it was like Juggernaut, for example. I don't know these by name, I haven't heard them. But obviously there is the heavy reality that I probably just didn't recognize the song because I haven't played the game itself in over a decade, so I'm not going to recognize what Juggernaut sounded like all these years later. But apparently it was a little bit more original on Aiden's side than I expected, because I have heard quite a few of Aiden's songs at this point, and a lot of them, basically 100% of the ones I have heard, have been referential, heavy referential to another song or another property, and you can tell. It's like using the exact same melody, using a heavy motif, just whatever it takes to be able to get that exact song into a different genre or a different general sound font. Again, it's mostly the sounds that end up changing a lot of the stuff. Like all the stuff he's done with like Limbus Company and like the general Project Moon stuff he's done that I have heard. All of that has basically taken a specific passage, if not the whole song, and just repackaged it into the Roblox sound for Item Asylum. And that's all fine and good. I don't really have a problem with that as long as it's done well. It's just a matter of when these original songs come out, I'm like, oh, that's just straight up different. That's more of like what Aiden's actual sound is. And while I was kind of having that moment at the end of the song where I'm like, so this is a little bit more of Aiden's sound, and that's why it sounds so much more unique than the other stuff I had heard. I could tell that there was some other quality in here. Again, the whole musician makes the instrument argument, where I could tell that this just was not something that I had heard elsewhere or was somebody else's full composition. There was a quality to this that felt a little bit more unique than before. And I think that part of that is because I've heard enough of Aiden's songs that I'm able to pick apart his tracks a little bit more and figure out what's his DNA and what's the other person's DNA. And I'm really just noticing that the song had kind of more of him in it than anything else. And that's a very nice quality. It's a very nice change of pace, given that everything I have heard has mostly been, like I said, heavy references to other stuff. Not a problem, like I mentioned before, but it's still nice to hear. You know, it's always nice to hear somebody who's just like, hey, I've done a lot of this. I want to make something in the energy with the vibe of this, but I'm not going to just straight up take that song and just, you know, slap a different beat on it, put it into my synths and call it a day. So I'll commend Aiden on that one, and I guess I'll move on to Mihawk and see what happens with that song. I'll listen to it and then kind of check the description to see if anything else is different, much like this one, so I can at least see maybe what Mihawk is supposed to mean. Hopefully there's some sort of connection in the description there, but I won't know if I don't start, so let's go! Okay, that's a different sound. No, wait a minute. Yeah. This sounds too familiar. I think this might actually be... I think I was right. I think this might be Mihawk from One Piece. Yeah. I mean, it's been a while, but it's gotta be. I mean, there's not many popular characters called Mihawk, so it wasn't like a hard thing to guess, but... I could, yeah. I'll still check the description afterwards to see, but... Yeah. It just... got that Mihawk energy to it. This is definitely more of like a heavy referential. Okay, that was the end of it. Okay. I gotta see if I was right. Yep, he had it in the description. It definitely is Dracula Mihawk. I was very, very certain I had heard that theme somewhere. The second it started, I was like, wait a minute. I think I know this. And then as it got in deeper, I was like, there it is. So yeah, okay, very much another one of those Aiden songs where it's just heavily borrowing from another song. And I really don't have a problem with that. I have to keep saying that every time I cover a song from Aiden, because I feel like there's always somebody who's just like, oh, you're gonna like beat his ass for like copying someone else. And it's like, there is a difference between just straight up ripping somebody else's song beat for beat, bar for bar, and actually making something like this that changes a significant amount of what's going on. It does use the theme, but it does creatively add and change the theme. It's not the exact theme. It is definitely the same motif, but everything else about the qualities to it and where he's placing things, the general arrangement is different and unique, and that is totally fine. You're not copying and pasting, you're inspired by and you want to make a version of, basically. It's kind of like remixing in a way, where it's not exactly the exact same song, you're kind of adapting it to a different genre almost, and that's kind of what Aiden's doing for these. So I don't have a problem with that as long as it is actually being changed and not just straight up going, yep, this is mine now, and just running away with it, because that'd be a dick move, right? So that's why I don't mind whenever I hear Aiden do this sort of thing, and why whenever I hear the things like the Too Many Trumpets versions, I'm like, hey, not too shabby, here's what I might change, here's what makes sense, here's, you know, etc. Once I started realizing that that's what Aiden was doing, and it's also the fact that Aiden is very open about these inspirations and where they're borrowing these themes from, because if he wasn't, then I'd be like, dude, go fuck yourself, because then you're just stealing somebody else's general motif work, which is still largely their concept in music. Aiden doesn't do that. He's like, hey, I've got a song, I heavily inspired it based on this other existing property, go support theirs as well, just like he did in the description for this one, was like, hey, here's a link to the other version that I borrowed from. That's all fine and dandy and good by me. So in general, a very nice version of it, and again, just fitting the aesthetic that he's going for. It's very much this Roblox sound, and I kind of do clown on that once in a while because everyone uses the same basic like presets and settings and stuff, so you can kind of tell like there's maybe 1 of 5 different libraries that people use in the Roblox scene at large, unless you're talking about people who are like really pro musicians and do this on a regular basis and are hired by a large Roblox game. Then they have a lot more utility to work with. But when you're just talking about the people who are making their songs for whatever games or making songs for their own games, they're going to be largely limited to either free stuff or just stuff that is very publicly available. Wink, wink, One Piece, yar har fiddly dee. We all have been there, right? But I do always find it funny when I hear a new song that's like, oh, yep, there's that same library. And I do wish that someday, some way, they get more to work with, because that is part of the creative process as well. For Aiden, there's that sound that follows Aiden around. It's specifically this sort of quality, but eventually that's going to change. And then you start to really see those holes in the creators sometimes when they start using different like libraries and synths, what their actual sound is, who they are. And sometimes they lose themselves in that transition, and that sucks. But other times it blossoms out this beautiful field of potential and possibilities that people just, they fucking flourish from. You know, it's gorgeous to see a new musician continuing to make the best that they can make, and doing so with the love of the game into whatever options they have. Like, not just straight up instrument VSTs and not having that, but like the ability to expand the sound libraries that they have and the general tone that they can approach. Because with these limitations, you lose a lot of that option. You don't get to do these cool cinematic sort of qualities or these cool atmospheric things. You don't get to mess around with different genres because it all kind of ends up sounding samey when you have the same library to work with. But eventually that will change, and you always want to watch these musicians do better, continue on, and keep cranking at it until they get to that point, because then you get to see who they really are as musicians. There was that little hint of who Aiden is in the prior song, so Hale has that quality for him of like, okay, this sounds more like him, but also still trying to emulate the energy of TF2. So when you take all that away, I don't think I've heard any truly original songs from Aiden, and it makes me wonder what that might sound like, especially if he has all of these other options in the future. So that's just me kind of waxing the philosophic potential of who Aiden may be as a musician, the growth of the artist over time. But in general, good songs. I don't really have anything bad to say, and I already said all the good things I can, so I think I can call it here. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want me to get to something else, by all means drop in the comments below and I will do my best as always to get to those. Or if you want to guarantee something, much like whatever did for these, you can always go to my Patreon, and if the tier is open, you can guarantee something out of me. It doesn't matter what it's from, who it's by, if it's good or bad, none of that matters. That's why it's a guarantee. But if you don't want to do any of that, maybe just want to follow me and support me for more stuff coming in the future, you know how to do all that, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye!